All right, cool. So, Michael Menchaca, doctor. Doctor. I'm going to call you that because I think this has been always one of my things is like people work for years and years and years to get this title. And when they just call, hey, buddy, what's going on now? It's like, you're legit.
Well, I'm a nurse practitioner, so
Right.
I'm not a doctor, although I've explained that to 1,000 people. And
So what's the difference?
So it's a different model of education. There's the medical model, which they follow, their 4 years of medical school. They do their residency and whatever training that they decide to pursue and things like that. Nurse practitioner school is a little bit different. We follow the nursing model.
Okay.
So we pick kind of what area we want to go into prior to even embarking on the program, right? Like you enter your program and your program's either family care, which is what I do. Your program is acute care, emergency rooms, things like that. You can even do like geriatrics where you specialize in taking care of folks 65 and older.
Okay.
You can do like a midwifery women's health program where then your specialty becomes, OBGYN stuff, even delivering babies. The midwife is something that's been pretty much forgotten, but they are more than skilled and trained to take care of the mother in labor, take care of the baby just after it's being born, things like that. We do 2 years of nursing school. We have to get our bachelor's, right? So it's a 4-year undergrad degree, and he's cool.
He always comes out of the podcast, man.
Yeah.
The more love you give him, the more he's not going to leave you alone.
Right. That's what I'm getting right now. So it's a 4 years undergrad, and then it's about 3 years of graduate degree program. And in that meantime, like you're always doing clinicals. So you have the clinicals as a registered nurse student, you have your work experience as a registered nurse, and you have your clinicals throughout the graduate program.
Right.
Whereas in medical school, you usually go through the schooling and then you kind of, your residency and training after the fact.
Gotcha.
So a lot of it's intertwined. And that's basically the nursing model will focus on the whole person. Right. So a broken leg is not just a broken leg. A broken leg is the broken leg of a father who has to work 2 jobs to provide for his family of 5. And we kind of look at the whole person versus the issue at hand, and I've been a nurse on the floor and seen, some docs go in and they're like, where's my broken leg? And, this and that, and we're in a room. And so just that kind of difference there, that's the difference in mentality, the difference in training. And that's why, the research and the data has actually shown that people prefer us and they usually have a better relationship with us because I guess we maintain a little more, like a human feeling throughout it.
Right.
And you'll actually find on a lot of different podcasts, docs are actually complaining that they beat the human out of them and they take away all their creativity and things like that just because of the regimen that they have to go through to get through medical school and things like that. And that's not to say that all docs are bad or that all NPs are perfect. Nurse practitioners there's some bad ones, there's some good ones.
As with anything.
Yeah, as with anything, there's good and bad.
Yeah, that's an interesting model. What I was trying to preface is you know what you're talking about. Pretty much.
Yes. And I've explained this countless times, and they I will look you in the eye and tell you the difference, and they're like, "Okay, doc."
Yeah.
Pharmacists, like it really. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. But I wanted to touch on the coronavirus because this is something that I saw and I've been seeing it pop up a ton on social media, and you're very active about explaining to people. You're very active about education. Information, right? So I think that's one of the important things about social media is getting it right, because a lot of people spread misinformation. It's literally everywhere. And now that it's come from China, it's coming to America. It's literally, I don't know how many, I had it written down somewhere, but I think there's 15 cases in the United States now with over 75,000 infected throughout the world, right? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to bring you on to specifically touch about that, how it's originated, what it originated from, because I heard it's from bats. Mm-hmm. I heard it's from tests that they had on bats in laboratory and then it got out. So I kind of want to clear up the space, and then I want to tell you, I want you to tell people how they can, I guess, be effective with not contracting the virus.
Sure. So the coronavirus was actually first defined and described in, that's an awesome coaster, by the way.
I think my wife got it.
That's so cool. I need one of those.
It's very hard for me to have this, dude.
So the coronavirus was actually first described in the early 1930s, and it has since evolved a few times. The most recent outbreak before this one was the SARS outbreak in 2003, where China and I think it was Hong Kong specifically they were very scrutinized for having a poor public health response and allowing it to kind of get beyond them. And I think that has stirred a lot of the coronavirus frenzy that we're seeing right now. There are quite a few cases, and like if you look on my Facebook and stuff like that, a lot of it is kind of downplaying the coronavirus because all the media outlets have kind of made it a little bit more than what it is. Although it is a serious threat, and it does have the potential to become something. It's not there yet. Most of the cases that we have in the United States are actually from people who were traveling in and around China and all the province and everything over there. Like the San Antonio case, that was somebody who was brought from China to America. But the news outlets are, San Antonio man contracts coronavirus or whatever, and like everybody's like, oh no, it's in San Antonio. So, you really actually don't have to go around too much with like preventing it. Actually, some of the medical supply stores in San Antonio are running out of face masks.
Really?
Yeah, because people are scared to contract it. The truth of it, as of late, and I was just reading on this last week, so I try to stay up to date kind of weekly on it, is that it's not actually spreading like human to human. Yeah. The way it originally comes from is bats. Yes, and in China, there's a lot of live animal markets, right? And that's where it was thought to be transmitted from bat to human. And that was originally how it was known to be transmitted, animal to human, until it mutated. And now it is transmitting person to person, but in China.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so in the Wuhan area, like, yes, it is spreading from person to person. There have been, I think, like 5 cases maybe of person-to-person spread in the United States. And it's typically the people who are close to the infected individual, wife, caregivers, spouses, children, things like that. I don't even know if a child's been infected yet. So that's how it's spreading. It's not like H1N1, back when that was around. So it's not really spreading too much, Essentially, if you want to prevent yourself from getting coronavirus, just don't go to China. Yeah. Don't go to China. And if you know somebody who's been in, around, or near China or any of those boats that they're evacuating people from, just stay away from them. You don't have to take any extraordinary measures with buying a 3-month supply of face masks or, quarantining yourself in your own house if you're not having symptoms. Yeah. So that's the 411 on corona as far as, preventing it, where it came from, and all that.
Yeah, I was hearing that the conspiracy theories behind the coronavirus, it just spreads fear. Like, for example, San Antonio, like you're telling, they're already running out of all these supplies, and it really does. I mean, on social media, people love controversy. Yeah. Are you a huge conspiracy theorist in that?
I went through a phase. Yeah. I went through a phase where I was maybe searching a little too many conspiracy videos on YouTube. Yeah, I don't anymore.
It's interesting, man, because I mean, there's so much fake information on the internet, and that's what I always ask people: is like, is it a good thing that the internet came along and social media and to give a voice to everybody, like you, me, some dude down the street, some psycho crazy guy that's killing people? I mean, it's literally opened the doors for everything, right? Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing?
I think with anything, I think the whole like, is it good or bad question, if you apply it to anything, it really depends on the situation, right? Like, the internet becoming what it is has allowed me to have much more educated and informed conversations with people who come to my clinic and who come to me for care. Yeah. So that's a good thing, It's a bad thing when you have some of the big media outlets releasing articles that say flu or corona more deadly than flu, which is just not true. No. I mean, I guess depending how you look at it, like, the death rate, if you break it down to percentages, number infected versus number who have died, sure, like, yes, it is higher than flu. If you look at China, if you take China out of the equation, it's probably comparable, but then it's all relevant. Right, so there have been 2012 confirmed deaths from coronavirus. Okay. All but 6 or 12, one of those two, 6 or 12 have come outside of China. So 2,000 are in China, right? Nobody else is really dying from the flu. Nobody in the United States has died from the flu. This year alone, this flu season, we already have, I think, 12,000 deaths in the United States.
From the flu. Wow.
Right, so like, that's probably a bad use of the internet and voices and not being completely informed and things like that.
Interesting.
So I think it's all dependent on the situation.
So with the mass hysteria, if the coronavirus were to come here to the United States, obviously there would be a huge frenzy of people, right, going all crazy. Are we prepared to take that on in hospitals? Because I heard that there was in 2 weeks they built 2 hospitals in China just to combat this huge outbreak.
Yeah.
Is it possible for us to like maintain and I guess, I don't know, quarantine or just fight this virus?
Right. I hope we don't have to find out.
Yeah.
I hope we don't have to find out. You want to think that we are. There's a lot of public health individuals who are trained in public health and combating these types of things. China so far has done a pretty good job from what I can tell. These kind of things, once it gets spread, it's hard to really, control it. But like if you think about China's total population versus who are infected, you're like, yeah, they're probably doing a pretty good job. They're doing a much better job than they did in 2003 because they got really scrutinized for that one.
Yeah.
But, if it were to happen here, we'd have to see. I want to say yes, like we are, more than trained, but I can't predict the future.
Yeah. So let's just go into scenarios. Say your practice, okay, the coronavirus is here and it's spread fast. It spreads pretty quick, right? Mm-hmm. So to say it spreads fast throughout the Rio Grande Valley, right? So what does that look like in your office? How do you combat it? Is there a antivirus for it?
There's not. To my knowledge, there's not like an antiviral for it. Like we have some antivirals for different viruses and things like that.
But not that specifically.
Not that one specifically. And basically what would happen is once you started seeing the spread of it, we'd have to find patient 0. And then we'd have to find out where they were, where they had been, who they come in contact with. That takes time. And then those people that they have come in contact with have been in touch with other people. And so you'll have people get through the cracks, it's just inevitable. And then you start going through all the algorithms of screening patients, like, where like right now there's like a little algorithm to help clinicians where if somebody has been to China or traveled in and around near China, especially the Wuhan area, and is experiencing basically flu-like symptoms, fever, cough, shortness of breath, overall ill feeling, or if they have close contact to somebody who's had the coronavirus or been in the China area, we're supposed to like quarantine them, let public health know, and kind of get them a mask so they don't spread it further. But at that point, like I probably have already been exposed. My medical assistant probably has already been exposed.
Yeah.
If there was people in the waiting room, which generally my practice is not, what's up, buddy, have fun. Then, yeah, and then you would go through, getting all the public health stuff going, quarantining certain areas. The ERs would then have to be, trained and prepared to quarantine certain areas. People would be like on lockdown, and you'd go through all these precautionary measures and just
it's so much.
Yeah, so much
wouldn't happen until it happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And my training's family care, which does involve public health, and I've had public health classes and things like that. And we've gone, part of the programs we've had public health efforts of going out and educating people on stuff. And it's just a lot to really do. So, I mean, a lot of the public health officials that are actively working on this, both here and across in other countries, deserve a lot of credit.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I was listening to a report that was on, I think, CNN about xenophobia, about how people are being racist towards Chinese people just because of what's going on in China.
Yeah.
But they have nothing to do with it. Like, I think in New York, in Chinatown, 70% of the business has gone down just because of xenophobia. The people are afraid, and they're just labeling them like it's your fault. It's your fault. I seen that on I think on one of the subways, some guy was telling the Chinese woman. I was like, it's a widespread panic is what it is, and it's not knowing about it. And this is what I hope to get cleared up here is like the only way you can get this stuff now is if you're traveling to China or Wuhan, China, where it originated, right?
That is correct. It is not actively spreading person to person in the United States. The only person-to-person spreads that have occurred have been the very, very close relatives and friends of the people. Like if, for example, if my wife were to contract it and I was taking care of her and things like that at home, like, yeah, I'm probably going to get it, but that's about it.
Yeah, for the most case, it won't. Cool, man. So I want to jump into social media. I love social media. I have to talk about marketing. I have to talk about advertising. And I saw what you're doing. I see that you're pretty active on social media. And I'm assuming you're a busy guy.
Yeah.
So how do you do it? Because I think everybody gets confused. Like social media is work, right?
Yeah.
It's like a whole nother job.
Yeah.
And I don't think people are willing to put in the time to be able to get the results that you get from social media doing it the long term. But you're very educational, you're very informational, and that's what you need to grow a good audience. And you are literally the expert when you keep on talking about it. So that's why I love your stuff, because you're informative, you're educational. So touch on that, because I think it's super important. Everybody's looking for that magic pill with social media, and they're like, they try it out for a month and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So touch on that.
Social media's been tough. Social media's actually taught me that I'm an introvert. That is for sure. It took me a long time to get started. And then when I did get started, it was, one post here, one post there, don't show my face, keep it to written word, things like that. And, I started kind of telling myself I need to put myself out there a little bit more, get my message across. And it's been a struggle, trying to come up with content, trying to think of the things to talk about, talking about it in a way that makes sense so people can understand it, no medical jargon, things like that. It does keep you very, very busy. A lot of times I'm replying to comments at 10 at night, 9:30 at night, 7 a.m., on my way to the gym in the morning, replying to the comments that came in at midnight, people are on social media at midnight,
All time.
Yeah, all times. It never stops. I do think that, like you said, the easiest way to grow a following is to be informative, to be educational, at least in my space. Healthcare, I think I just really try to focus my content on informing people rather than selling people. Yeah.
It's the Gary V model, man. So you give jab, 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 right hook, right? I think we're both fans of Gary V.
For sure.
And I think it's super interesting, because I think nobody ever put it in perspective until he came along and just started creating all this content. And I think you're absolutely right. Like, it's work. It takes a lot of work, but when you do it and you do it consistently over and over and over and over again, it just works. And it's a long-term game. Why do you think people aren't doing this?
Because it's work. That was a very Gary V answer, right? No, I mean, I think it takes a lot mentally to kind of put yourself out there and talk about what you want to talk about. I think and myself included, not everybody always has the gear to just stop caring what people think about. Yeah. And I go through moments where I probably don't post where I should. I may be silent for a week because I'm like, oh man, I don't know. And then just like it flips and I'm like, boom, 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 a couple posts. And it does take time, away from you. Like a lot of times, I will have my wife drive the car, actually, so I can, create a post and schedule it for later to be posted later. And a lot of times I'm up at nights thinking about, like, what am I going to talk about and things like that. And it's all part of growing the audience and the awareness so that, long term you can have your followers and have your business succeed and things like that. 'Cause it's all a long game. I forgot who was talking about this specifically, but I think it was probably actually Gary V, most likely. Like, brand is the only way to survive long term. And then Simon Sinek.
Simon Sinek.
Yeah, Sinek. He talks about how like nobody's playing the long game as well. He talks about kind of that the game of business never really ends, and if you play it as a start and an end, you won't succeed long term. Versus if you understand that it is a game that never ends, right? It doesn't end with you, then you can start to refocus and reshape your content kind of towards that arena, and you'll eventually have success. But it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of typing with your thumbs, and it's going to take time away from your Saturdays, time away from your Sundays. It's going to interrupt your dinners and things like that. So it's a tough ask, I think. Just one, in general, the time it takes. Two, just putting yourself out there in a world that is hypercritical.
Yeah. 100%, man.
Hypercritical, for sure.
I think Mark Cuban said it best. Business is 24/7, 365 days a year, 7 days a week. It's nonstop. It's, you don't turn it off, man. So the more you're out there, the better you are. But what I wanted to touch on is the introvertedness. You said you're an introvert. Or have you always been an introvert? Because you seem like you have to be extroverted in your career. Same thing with me. I'm extroverted at certain times, but I'm introverted at certain times. So I fall in between. So I think maybe you fall in between as well.
Yeah, I think so. I was a very shy young boy, very shy. Middle school dances, I was on the bleachers just watching. Wouldn't go dance. I was too embarrassed. High school, very embarrassed, very shy. I was not really out there too much. If I was out of my friends, something triggered something in like the senior year, and I was just like, I can't be like this forever. And I started trying to break out of my shell, and eventually I did. But even then, when I was making strides towards that, like if I were like, I mean, you meet new friends in college, right? And they might be, going through the same educational process you're going through. Like when I was in nursing school, I had my nursing school buddies, right? And when I would go with them to their friends' parties, I would feel it again. I'm like, oh, who do I talk to? I don't want to talk to anybody. Yeah, you're kind of like, you find yourself up against the wall a little bit, and you kind of go back to, I would go back to my introverted state. And that's just something I keep working on, like trying to be extroverted, trying to be more social. And that's one of my like ongoing continuous self-improvement processes.
That's how I am at networking events, dude. I can't stand networking events. For some reason, it's when I get invited, I just turn it down. I was like, because I've been to a few, and I was like, I'm always isolated. It's like, it feels weird because I do all my networking through social media ads. Like when I go somewhere, they kind of already know what I'm about. They know what I'm talking about. So they know what to expect instead of me going in cold, which I'll do cold calls and I'll do cold meetings, stuff like that. But networking, when there's a lot of people around, I feel like something gets lost in all that space with all these people. I just don't like it. So I let my advertising do the networking for me, and I reel them in with sales ones. It works, man.
Yeah,
it works for me.
Yeah, whatever works.
Yeah. So advertising and marketing, man. What's been the biggest thing that you've done with your business, your company, that you've seen the best results from?
So my clinic is revolves around a membership model, right? So it's membership model. Patients are paying, or members are paying a monthly membership fee to be able to receive care at our clinic, and it comes with a multitude of amenities, right?
Are there a lot of people that do that model?
Not here, and not across the country, actually.
Okay.
I think there was only 900 clinics across the country that use this model. So not a big thing, but it is growing, and it is growing fast, and it's mostly because of the frustrations of healthcare in general. So the biggest thing that I've done with my clinic that has really kind of propelled us faster than I thought it would go is I give members a free month if they send me somebody that signs up on the membership. And for me, that was the most inexpensive way to market within my own walls and not have to have a big spend, especially starting out, right? Where money's tight. And it really just comes down to providing great care. And then they tell their friends and family, and they're like, hey, I benefit because I get a free month. They benefit because now they'll have somebody to go to, and then I benefit because I have a new member. Right. So it becomes win-win-win-win, and that was basically, that's been my biggest like go-to. I talked to other nurse practitioners that have clinics across this, like Arizona, New Mexico, and they think it's crazy. And I'm like, I think it's crazy to not do it. Yeah.
No, it's interesting, man, because I think those are the things that break the molds. Like you're pioneering something here that's never been here before. Right. So people see it as like, well, I can go to the doctor, or I can go to the clinic pretty much with a monthly fee, like a gym membership fee, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a subscription model. And I love that subscription model because it works, and it works with a ton of businesses on social media. And that's how, I mean, Facebook isn't cool, but it's made a ton of businesses. Yeah. And the subscription model works really good because it's $10, $20, whatever it is online, right? For these businesses. And you just get a recurrent thing. And that means revenue coming in every single month for the business owner. I think it's a very interesting model, and I love that, dude. It's very smart.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Appreciate it. I think it works, and I think subscriptions are growing in popularity because it's becoming harder to manage money, right? And I mean, this is a conversation that we can take on forever about how inflation has gotten crazy, wages aren't following. So I think a subscription becomes an easier way to manage your finances, right? Like it's a set every month. Like you can plan for that. You can plan for that. So otherwise, 1 month you might be spending $250 on medical bills, and then maybe you don't have another expense for a few months, but then the next month you have $300, and then a few months later it's $100, and it would just be easier if you broke it into 12 monthly payments, which is what we did.
So how do you pitch that to your clients? Because it's I'm assuming, for me, social media is one of the hardest things I ever can sell, because people here in the Rio Grande Valley, for one, they don't get it. They don't understand the value of it, and they think it's just a free platform. We're like, all right, well, it's free. Why am I going to pay for it? So having that sale, how do you pitch it to your clients?
It basically, what I relied on, right? Like if we go back to how I got started, I would explain people like, okay, look, this is a monthly fee. This is what you're going to get. Da, 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 da. And I had a little bit of leeway because most people are extremely frustrated with most clinics and most healthcare. Not that they're frustrated with the people taking care of them, because a lot of times the clinicians in the background are great and people love going to see the clinicians, but it's the whole process of like having to go wait for 3 hours, getting a very short amount of time because clinicians are double booked, triple booked. The one that I hate the most is the surprise bills 3 months later because your insurance didn't cover this or cover that.
Yeah.
So people are already frustrated about that. So I felt like it was kind of easy to hack that. What I relied on mostly was customer service. I think I have a natural gift at customer service, and I think my dad, he had his own business. He kind of helped mold that a little bit, and I think that's really been like the biggest driver. Once people came in, they're like, okay, like they're a little hesitant, like monthly fee, why am I going to pay you if I'm not coming, kind of thing. But then they saw like, hey, we're going to sit down for 30 minutes to an hour. We're going to talk about all your concerns. You're not going to be rushed. You're going to be able to call me. When you call, I answer. I take my time with you. You know, all that. When you come up and when you actually get to the appointment, you don't wait. You know, you are greeted by my medical assistant who always greets you with a smile and by name, right? And not just shouting from a door, right? That acts as a barrier to entry. Once they started to experience that, then that's when they were like, okay, you know, I get it. It makes sense now. And we had people who abused, you know, no way to avoid that anywhere, not just in the Valley, but there's no way to avoid that. And we had people that loved it. We had people that took advantage, which I think is a little bit different than abused. And it was just kind of like a snowball where it was growing and growing and growing. As it was growing, you know, it was throwing pieces off where, you know, members were leaving and things like that, but we kept growing and growing and growing. Now it's very steady.
Okay.
Now it's very steady. And the membership to the Harlingen Clinic is actually closed now. We're no longer accepting new members.
Gotcha.
And so that's been good. That's been good.
So then once you get to a certain amount of number, you just cut it off.
Right.
And then you open up a new office.
Right. Because you cut it off to not overextend yourself, right? Because the point is to be there, you know, 100% for the people that are there for you. And when you have a membership, that's kind of what you expect. Yeah. Right. So that's what we provide. So the second clinic is not to, you know, overextend myself as well. The second clinic is to bring on a new clinician who will then take care of her or his own members.
Gotcha. How do you, okay, so obviously you work one way, right? And this is always the problem that I'd have is when I pull on clients, I'm going to get too busy to be able to give them everything, right? Because people are like, I want to work with Josh. I want to work with Josh. So that's why it's been very hard for me to scale what I do, right? Because I like things a certain way. I like speed. I love speed. Social media world that we live in is all about speed, right? And it's content and it's creating all this different type of content that goes out like a machine, right? So I can't replicate myself, and I've hired a few people on that they're just not up to my standard. And I don't know if that's just my ego talking or whatever, but maybe I'll ask you this: is do you see that in your new clinic? Would you be micromanaging these people, or would you let them do their own thing?
So the clinician that is in mind for the clinic, I won't break it out loud. My members know. I won't say it publicly yet, but very close to me.
Okay.
So I am not foreseeing that problem, but that is a real problem. And if I was to just put out an ad, you know, for a nurse practitioner to come in and run the clinic in the model we do, I'd be very, very hesitant. Yeah. I'd probably take a long time to make that decision. My dad has his used car lot now for 22, 23 years. And I started working there when I was 10. I kind of learned it from the bottom up. Yeah. And I saw a lot of people come and go. Yeah, a lot of people come and go. From, you know, the person working on the cars to the person taking the payments to the person who was supposed to act as a manager in his place when he wasn't there. And he couldn't figure it out. Like, same thing. Like, they weren't up to his standard, right? And I guess nobody ever truly would be, you know? So that becomes a tough path to navigate, right? When you're trying to scale and you're trying to grow. I don't know.
Tell me the answer, man.
I don't know. You know, I've talked to a few other nurse practitioners that I know that have their own clinics as well, and it's a conversation that comes up a lot. You know, how to scale. You know, because eventually you want the clinics to make money when you're not there, and I don't know. It just never really runs the same if you're not there.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing because my dad owns a Dairy Queen Mercedes. Same as you, I grew up in Dairy Queen since I was 6 years old. So Dairy Queen is all I ever knew. And he was always like, I'm never gonna retire because I can't trust these people. I can't not trust them, but I can't. It doesn't run the same when I'm not there, right? So he's always like, well, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. I need to be there. He said he's gonna die making ice cream cones. So it's like
Respect.
yeah. And I think that's where I got a lot of my drive from. But at the same time, like, I want to grow a bigger business, right? So it's like always navigating that thing. The other day, somebody called me, one of my friends, and she was like, what's going on? I was like, I'm navigating the entrepreneur roller coaster of life.
Yeah.
But I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is as entrepreneurs and people that are doing these new things is people see our face value, right? On social media. It's like, oh, these guys live wonderful lives, but they don't really understand because they're not in it. So what's been your biggest struggle that you've seen so far with your clinic?
The biggest struggle? Oh, man. Battling self-doubt, being completely honest. Yeah, there are a lot of days where I was just like, what am I doing? Like, you know, from internal thoughts of like going back to the whole nurse practitioner doctor thing. I was like, there was days where I was like, I'm a nurse practitioner. I'm not a doctor. Why do I have a clinic? You know, why am I putting myself through this? Like, and then there was other days where I'm like, I'm never going to grow this to what my dad was able to grow. And so there's that conversation, you know, where you start, you know, you almost start to think like I had it too good growing up, even though we started like low middle income, you know, and then we've kind of grown from there. To, you know, I'm not gonna be able to do it, right? Or then you have days where you lose money, and that sets off red flags, and you stay up at night thinking like, what am I doing? Like, I should have just stayed working with the big corporate company and collected my paycheck and just enjoyed life. Yeah. And internally, you know, if you do venture off into the entrepreneurial world and it is meant for you, you kind of have that, like, you never would have been happy just collecting the paycheck. Yeah. And I've never made a good employee because I always think that something could be done a different way. I've never been in a position to actually put those things into play. Every time I would make suggestions, it would basically get ignored, or it was only taken at face value and then, you know, basically discarded. So I think struggling with the self-doubt of going through that roller coaster of the ups and downs has been the toughest part about going through business. Like, I think it has really tested my will and my my whole, you know, attitude on optimism. Yeah. I thought it was very optimistic. Now I think more so, but it got tested.
Yeah. Do you think that self-doubt is from the doctor's point of view, right? All your peers, they're doctors and you're a nurse practitioner. So you're having that internal battle. It's like, I'm a nurse practitioner. These doctors are doctors that have been doing it for years. Is that what it is? Or?
Well, there's that. There's also this ongoing battle of nurse practitioners versus doctors for a variety of reasons. Nurse practitioners are expanding, they're not expanding their scope, but they're expanding their reach. You know, we're getting a little bit more autonomy, and laws are changing across the country. Like right now I have to have a supervising physician, and the supervising physician that I have is great. I've known him for a long time. He works with me really well. Sometimes other nurse practitioners have to get supervisings that aren't as great to work with, and they end up running like $5,000 monthly bills. Wow. That becomes hard to stay open. You know, other states have taken away that legal requirement of having that supervising, and that's because 30 to 40 years of research has shown that our outcomes are equal, and patients probably like us a little bit better. And sometimes our outcomes are better. And I attribute that to the relationships that we're able to establish, and that just goes back to the models of care, or the models of education. Yeah. And so there's that battle, right? And so, you know, you're part of different business groups, and there are, you know, MDs in there and NPs in there that are constantly bickering, like, we should or shouldn't, and this and that. And so that's always in the back of your head. And then you see, you know, kind of these career physicians that have been there for so long, and they have huge practices, and your practice can feel very small when you're starting out, and that plays a role into the self-doubt and just wondering if you have what it takes to be a businessman. You know, that creeps in there. So there's quite a few aspects to it.
So what is it that keeps you going then?
I would say that it is, for the longest time, it's been the thought of a family. the thought of family, because I don't essentially have any children right now. We are expecting in July. So
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
thank you. I appreciate that. So that becomes a little bit more real now. But I've always kind of thought like, I guess I saw my dad, he was working, he managed every single lax in the valley.
Okay.
Yeah. And he was kind of up there. They wanted to promote him to be some big title. He made a request as a financial request to be signed on paper before he took his position. They said no. And then the corporate world back in the mid 90s was kind of hitting a stagnation.
Mm-hmm.
And so my childhood, I saw him working with lax, never home on Sundays, missing all my t-ball games, missing soccer games, missing all that stuff. And then he went out on his own and he was there all the time. And he was there on Saturdays and Sundays, and he was able to take me to the park to go practice baseball. And that, I guess, stuck with me a lot more than I knew. And I was like, I want to provide that for my family. And he helped me a lot, you know, with school and things like that. And so being able to provide all that for me, I was like, okay, I got to provide that and more for the next generation.
Right.
And that's been the biggest, you know, motivating factor.
Do you feel like the whole American dream of entrepreneurship, you got to make all this money, you got to have these nice fancy cars, you got to have these nice houses, material stuff. Do you think that really matters at the end of the day? Because I think you touch on it, but at the end of the day, we as Americans or as people want to progress regardless. Mm-hmm. And I think money is a huge tool to be able to do that stuff because it gives us freedom. Yeah. So touch on that, because I think that's super important, because I used to be super naive. My dad obviously was doing very well, right? And I always tell him, like, I don't need money to be happy. And then when I started making money, it's like, oh, I'm pretty happy, man. So touch on that, because I think it's super important.
Yeah. So when I started out and when I first finished school, I wanted the nice car and the big house and, you know, the vacations and stuff like that. And I'm sorry, the question in its heart, what is the question again?
It's do you need money to be happy?
To be happy. I think that varies on the individual. So going back to what I was saying, like I thought cars, house, vacation, stuff like that. Then once the business was actually, you know, because you're growing and growing and growing, trying to get there, right? Once it got to that base where I'm like, okay, like I can make moves from here. Once I got there, I was like, this is so cool. Like I don't answer to anybody, you know, but myself. I make my own decisions. Everything that I want to implement gets implemented. I consult with myself and a few people that I trust, and that's that. And I was like, this is cool. Like I don't need the 2-story house, you know, I don't need the whole thing. And that just become my realization. And that might have been like a moment of maturity for me, perhaps. I think there are other individuals who, they do need the materialistic things to be happy. And that's just their own individual makeup for whatever reason, based on their experiences. Other people would probably be happy working the 9 to 5 and collecting a paycheck and, you know, being able to, you know, not have the stress of the business. Actually, one of my best friends, I would have this conversation with him all the time. He was like, and his dad owns a business. He was like, I never want to run a business or own a business. I just want to go work 9 to 5, not worry about it. Yeah. He's like, I'm happy. And he actually said it from a place where I believed him. Like he was happy. Yeah. And he was cool with the money he's making, and you know, it wasn't bad money. It's not, you know, it's not millionaire money, but it's good money. Yeah. So
yeah, I think that's the thing is a lot of people can be happy with a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 salary versus going out and try to make as much as you possibly can.
Right.
So I think that's a super important conversation to have, because I think there's a lot of, with yourself. Yeah. And with your friends, because
with your friends too.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times is when I was going off into social media marketing and advertising, it was completely different than Dairy Queen, right? So it was a huge leap, and a lot of my friends and family were like, well, why are you going away from a sure thing, right? Because I was getting groomed to take over Dairy Queen already. So why are you going to go from a sure thing to something that's uncertain? But I think it's always that entrepreneurial drive that my dad had. Like, I have to try it. I have to try it for myself. Yeah. And I think that's super important conversation to have, even when you don't have the support from your friends and family. Because I mean, it took me 3 years to be able to like, all right, I'm doing this full time. Like, all right, I did it. But people won't invest that time. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the hard part.
Yeah. It goes back to work. When I started the clinic, I was working my 8 to 5. When word broke about the clinic, when I broke word about the clinic, I got fired from where I was working. So then I was without a job for a little while. I got a job again, working 8 to 5. I would run my clinic 5 to 9. I did that for so many days. I think it was like a little over a year. At that point, I made the transition where I was working that day job 8 to 12, and I was working my clinic 1 to 7, and I did that for like a whole nother year. And then finally, I made the transition to like, okay, I'm just going out on my own.
Yeah.
So it was just growing that. But those were 18-hour days. You know, those were 30 minutes at night to talk about things with my fiance, like how was your day, and then sleep and repeat. And, you know, obviously that included gym time, that included study time, you know, continuing education, actual time at the clinic, time at my part-time job. 18 hours a day, most people just don't want to do it. And I would probably encourage them then not to, unless they were really about it, because it's not easy.
It's exhausting, because I think it could put a strain on your family. And because I know I had Dr. Chirac on, and I was asking her, because I'm always asking people like for their advice, right? Because I think it's super important. Like I'm working tons. I don't know when to turn off the work mode, all that, like at all. Like even when I have my kids here and we're enjoying stuff, I'll still be in work mode thinking about things. And I always try to switch it off. But is it a bad thing, or is it, I guess it's a bad thing or a good thing that I have that that business frame of mind? Because I guess what I'm trying to do is make up for all the lost time that I wasted, pretty much. And I want my kids to be able to see, like, all right, well, I'm hustling. I'm out there working to get to a goal that I had. And I want to instill that in my children. It's like, all right, well, I'm here, but sometimes I'm mentally not here, right?
Yeah.
So is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing to be able to chase that American dream when you have a family?
Yeah, I think there's trade-offs. I would not label it a bad thing. I would not label it, you know. You could see it as like you're not mentally present, but even if you were, if you could go into a room and turn the switch off physically, and then your mind were just to stop on the business, would you then become a little anxious? And would you then be a little bit irritable and maybe not be enjoyable to be around?
True.
You know? Yeah. So I when you think about it like that, you know, you kind of like, hey, this is Joshua Morales and this is Michael Menchaca, and we just have that, you know, within us. And if you turned it off, I don't think we'd be very happy people.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. You know, and it's just, you know, you give your all at everything you can. You know, you do 100% with being a parent. You do 100% with being a friend, with being a husband, with being a family member, being a son or a daughter, and you know, the ones who love you will accept you.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, man. Thanks for the insight, because I'm always trying to make things better for myself, regardless of what people say. Yeah. Well, cool, man. I'd like to thank you very much for coming on the podcast, but let's pitch your clinic, dude.
So my clinic, Menchaca.
Or are you already maxed out?
Well, so Menchaca Family Clinic is maxed out. We're opening Amenity next month, hopefully, if everything goes according to plan. Amenity will be in Weslaco, Texas, also following the direct primary care model. Weslaco is my hometown, so I'm really excited about that clinic opening. It's a monthly membership type clinic. The membership covers all your visits, whether it's a sick visit, whether it's a well visit, whether it's an injury visit, a work physical, sports physical, any reason you think of for going in there, it's covered. You get unlimited telemedicine. You get wholesale labs, which are huge. You get you get free procedures, right? Like you need EKG, it's nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, stitches, nothing. Incision and drainage for like a tacote, right? Nothing. We do trigger point injections, nothing. We do percussion therapy and basic physical therapy, no extra charges for that stuff. Labs are wholesale, so our labs probably are like $3, $3.50, $3.75, $4, $6, $5, where some of those labs are $200 elsewhere. You get a one-on-one relationship with me where I'll take your time, 30 minutes, hour appointments, things like that. Unlimited telemedicine, not sure if I mentioned that already. And then we actually just added free specialist visits. So like we can link you up with cardiology, pulmonology, gastroenterology, urology, orthopedic surgery, pain management, and that's been really cool. And like we're talking, once I get that consult submitted, we have like at the max a 24-hour turnaround.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, a lot of times they come back in 4 or 5 hours, and that just saves people so much time. It's been really great. Everybody that is a member loves it. We've been growing a little bit faster than I thought we would when I first started the model. And yeah, I'm excited to bring it to Weslaco, and we'll see. Obviously, just my mindset. I'm like, okay, how can I take it to McAllen and Wittenberg and Pharr and San Juan and Mission? And but we'll see what's to come.
How long before you see other practices doing this stuff? Because I mean, obviously this is something new, right? I think once people get the wind of it, is it an easy transition?
No. And so I think that's going to be a big barrier.
Okay.
A big barrier. Like if you're a large clinic and you're fee for service, which fee for service is the standard model that you see wherever you go, basically. If you fee for service, then you got to transition everybody, or you're going to transition into a DPC. That becomes very hard because it's a different accounting system that you have to do. You have to let people go. You have to see what patients are going to stick around, which ones can afford to pay you monthly, or who wants to pay you monthly.
Yeah, for some people, it wouldn't make sense.
For some people, it would make absolutely no sense, and it'd probably run them out of business. But the cornerstone of having a successful direct primary care practice is to have a small footprint, right? So very minimal overhead. A lot of the ones that do get started up, they have a space not bigger than this office here.
Wow.
Yeah, and they just have one table. They got their desk, and that's where they run it, and they run it on their own. Wow. Like not a single other person. They do the accounting, they do the collections, they do the care, all that stuff. So you're talking about practices that have 25 employees, like
it wouldn't make sense.
It wouldn't make sense, yeah. And then you have to pay the salaries of other nurse practitioners, other doctors. Like it's hard to make that transition. So I think the successful ones will be ones that start up from the ground up. It might be doctors or clinicians and nurse practitioners, even PAs that branch off and do it on the side, kind of like I did.
Yeah.
And they can start it that way. And I really hope we see a lot of growth down here for that, because not only the valley, not only the country, but the valley particularly needs it. Texas needs it. We're one of the most underserved medical communities, medical states in the country. We rank pretty much last. 1 year it was like we were 45th. I think the next year we were 47th.
Damn.
So we're down near the bottom. We're down near the bottom, and physicians are less and less. They are going into primary care. They're going into specialties for a variety of reasons, and nurse practitioners are growing and growing and growing. So I see nurse practitioners particularly with an opportunity here.
Cool, man. Mike, I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thanks for
appreciate
having me.
your insight, bro.